You will not believe how much the meta in Hearthstone has changed after an entire old set has been reintroduced to Standard right now. Knights of the Frozen Throne was an amazing expansion back in the day, but let's see what the meta is gonna look like when it came back to Standard. In this video, I will show you 5 of the best Hearthstone decks right now, but we will also go over every single class and see what are the working archetypes for them as well. So stick around to the end. If you're serious about Hearthstone, definitely consider subscribing to the channel and also leaving a like on the video. It really helps out a lot. I do my best to give you guys top 5 best decks meta reports each single week, so if you want to be up to date with all of the changes in the meta, this is definitely one of the best places to get it from. Don't forget you can also hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
As you can see from the HS Replay homepage, there are not too many outliers, and the meta seems decently balanced, with the best performing class being at 53 and the worst one at 45. And honestly, even these classes have top tier performers right now, so don't worry. The first deck on the list is surprisingly actually gonna be Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior saw a very good rise in power after the old set got released back into Standard, and the main reason for that is this deck is very fast and it's pretty good at punishing slow, greedy, unrefined decks, which I'm assuming is the main reason why this deck got so good again. Enrage Warrior hasn't been too powerful just yet, but now we truly see it actually does hold merit into playing it. Enrage Warrior is pretty aggressive, and you basically want to be tempoing out minions in the early game and start buffing him out with all of your Enrage synergies. Anima Extractor is also a very huge card in this deck, and the buffed Imbued Axe is really powerful as well. You also have the Crazed Wretch, which has charge when damaged, and that can be pretty huge too. Matchup wise, we really don't have too much stats for it, but as you can see, like I said, it's pretty powerful against slow, unrefined decks. Mulligan wise, we don't have that much stats either, but when going first and second, the Imbued Axe is probably always going to be a great keep for you. Anima Extractor as well. Dredge Staff I'd assume is also pretty good. Location also is pretty nice. Warsong Envoy too, and Trog as well. Crazed Wretch I would also assume is not a bad keep, and if you're recurving out, things like Rakara can be pretty powerful as well. Weapon Expert is also a pretty nice way for you to guarantee you get your Imbued Axe. For other good warrior decks, we only have Enrage Warrior as a good performer since the patch launched. But still, that's more than it was before that, so there's that. You probably noticed that we didn't have any new cards in this deck, but don't worry, the second one probably has some. And the second deck on the list is gonna be Naga Priest, which is actually the other tier 1 deck from Diamond to Legend right now. Naga Priest is still as powerful as ever, and you have all sorts of cheap Nagas in this one, which you can buff out, and then finish off with a good Boon of the Ascended on it, so people can't even silence it. This deck is not as susceptible to card removal like the Just Boom Priest, so you still have a shot against things like Paladins, and also Beast Hunters with Tarantulas. You basically want to curve out with your cheap Nagas, keep on cycling those wigs, and as soon as the opponent stops answering your threats, you can literally OTK them as long as you have an attacking minion on the board. A single Vicious Litter Spear can literally do OTKs as soon as turn 4 if the cards land correctly for you. You also have a couple of locations, a lot of card draw with your Handmaiden. Pelagos is pretty nice because it's basically Inner Fire forever. And Blade Master Samuro can do crazy board clears, as well as he's also a pretty healthy boy, so the opponent is gonna have to answer him. Matchup wise, Frog apparently is not so great for you, but Kris, Imp Warlock and Ram Druid are gonna be pretty easy. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like. Even though the stats are not super populated, you still get a good idea of what you should be looking for. Your cheap Nagas, your wigs, Murkwater Scribe, Boon of the Ascendant, it's kinda tricky keeping that when going first especially. Location's okay, Elemental as well. And Shadow Word Devourer against aggressive wide board classes is gonna be great for you. When going second, I do believe Shadow Word Devourer even becomes more keepable, Boon of the Ascendant becomes acceptable, and I do believe the Handmaiden becomes a bit more keepable, but I guess you do have to have a little bit of already good hand, like you want a good cheap minion plus a wig so you can ensure you're gonna be able to get enough spells on her. Treasure Guard is not a bad minion to keep because it's pretty hard to deal with early on. The location and your cheap good minions are also pretty good. For other good priest decks, apparently Big Priest is doing somewhat okay, which is kinda interesting. And we also have Boar Priest above 50%, so that's kinda new. Maybe just some pros are starting to spam a lot of games with it so they can actually get above 50% compared to all of the other people that are butchering this deck. But yeah, that's about it for Priest, and again, surprisingly, no cards from Knights of the Frozen Throne. Huh. On the number 3 spot, we have Aggro Beast Druid, which is literally as strong as ever. Like, It's probably the cheapest deck you can reach easy legend with, and the games with it are pretty fast and not necessarily too complicated. The deck has tons of cheap early game with 1-drops, and after that you transition to your buff game plan and just spam the opponent's face. The real skill test with this deck is knowing what board clears you should be playing around against each individual opponent, so yeah, you will have to be keeping different 1-drops and different buffs depending on the matchup so you can better your odds of winning those games. But all in all, it's just aggro, so it's not that hard. Matchup-wise, we have a lot more population here. Enrage Warrior is not going to be great for you. Everything else looks pretty decent. I'm not sure if Naga Priest is going to be a great matchup for you though, because they can literally suck off your wide board and make a very large man like that. Mulligan-wise, here's what it looks like going first. Herald of Nature is always going to be great. Depending on the matchup, you want to be keeping the relevant 1-drops. Obviously, Peasant is not going to be amazing against the Demon Hunter, but it's going to be great against anything else going turn 1. Iron Deep Shrug is usually always awesome. Living Roots gives you a couple of good boys on the board, as well as it's a nature spell so you can trigger your Herald of Nature as soon as turn 1. Vicious Litter Spear pretty decent. Druid of the Reef is very flexible. And in some cases you could even consider keeping something like Crooked Cook. Honestly, Aquatic Form, I would always keep one copy of it because it's basically a second mulligan phase for you. When going second, again, Herald of Nature is great. Druid of the Reef is even more important here because you might have to answer the opponent's early game. Peasant plus Beaming Sidekick is an amazing combo you can coin out as soon as turn 1. Mark of the Wild is pretty hard to deal with if you coin it out on turn 2. And again, Aquatic Form is not a bad keep whatsoever. Shrug really depends on the matchup. For other good Druid decks, we have Ram Druid, who's actually running Lich King plus Spreading Plague, which is probably one of the best cards from the entire set right now. We also have Malfurion in this list. I don't really believe that's a great inclusion, honestly, but hey, who knows. We also have other versions of Ram Druid doing well, and there's also Town Druid with Hardronox, which is looking kinda interesting, but stats are not amazing. So that's it for Druid, and oddly enough, still no Knights of the Frozen Throne cards. Surely the next deck's gonna have some, right? Wrong. It's Demon Hunter, so no Knights of the Frozen cards here. But yeah, Aggro Demon Hunter, same concept, brainless aggro, punishes all of the decks that are trying to figure out some new stuff from the old sets, and it was actually rising in power beforehand too. But now with all the people experimenting, Aggro Demon Hunter can just spam face, and usually that's enough to take the win. You're running the newly buffed card, Biblomite. We also have the Magnifying Glaive that ensures you never run out of cards, combined with your Sightless Magistrate. We have Lady Steno with a ton of cheap spells. And you have your cheap early game with Vicious Litter Spear, Metamorphin, and we also have the nerf reverted Battle Worn Vanguard, which is still pretty nice. Matchup wise, again, Curse Imp and Ram Druid not that hard for you, and Fever Rogue is close to 50. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like going first. Basically, you want your good 1-drops, Biblomite is usually good enough to keep, Chaos Strike is not horrible, Battle Swarm Vanguard as well, the weapon can do a lot of work, and Metamorphin can be pretty good if you have a cheap Fel spell to activate it with. When on the coin, again, it's basically the same thing. Lady Steno becomes a lot more keepable here though as well, and you can even tempo her out. Kurtrus is also probably not a bad keep in that situation, but yeah, you get the picture. For other good Demon Hunter decks, we also have Fel Relic Demon Hunter doing fine, as well as just Relic Demon Hunter, but that's about it for the class. And the last deck on the list is surely gonna have some new cards from Knights of the Frozen Throne, right? Well, not really. Literally, not a single deck from the best performers is running any of the old new cards from Knights of the Frozen Thrones. And we have Imp Warlock on the number 5 spot again, and the deck is as strong as ever. Nothing really changes here, it's still the deck I have been showing you for quite a few weeks now. You still have Brand, so you can slap in extra curses from Cultist, or get extra shades from Lady Darkvein, or just the Kuel action. We still have Tamsin to also double up all of the curses, and your early game is as strong as ever. I actually tried switching out Grimoire Sacrifice for a couple of Defiles, and gotta be honest, it did feel amazing in some matchups, but the thing is, Grimoire Sacrifice is great because you don't destroy your board while destroying the opponent's board a lot of the time, whereas Defile is basically a complete board reset. If you're lucky enough to actually set it up that way, But yeah, when it works, when it doesn't, it's kinda useless, so there's that. But yeah, the rest of the deck is basically the same thing. Matchup-wise, here's what it looks like, and this is the most populated matchup list we have seen so far. Naga Priest is gonna be horrible for you for obvious reasons. Miracle Rogue is not too amazing either because they're too fast. Same goes for Enrage Warrior most of the time. And Aggro Demon Hunter is close to 50-50. Mulligan-wise, going first, you want your good Imp cards, with Wicked Shipment, Circle, and Flame Imp at the top. Flustered Librarian is also amazing. I would honestly not be keeping Drag below unless I have a very good reason to think about it. Vile Library, you usually want to be keeping it if you already have a good one-drop, and same goes for Impending Catastrophe, and I would honestly probably not be keeping both of these unless I have something like maybe Wicked Shipment, and even then it probably depends on the matchup. Rafam, if you're already curving into it, it's not a bad keep, because tempoing this on turn 6 is usually pretty strong, and same can be said for Mischievous Imp for turn 4. Cultist is also not the worst thing for you if you already have like a good hand like Wicked Shipment, Flame Imp. Curving into a cultist like that, definitely not a bad idea. But definitely don't just keep it as a standalone card. Like it's an okay card, but it's not something you're gonna be super happy about. And when on the coin, you get to keep a little bit more reactive stuff. I would honestly never be keeping Lady Darkbane like that though. And yeah, basically same stuff, but you can also consider keeping something like Grimoire Sacrifice or Touch of the Nephrazim, depending on the matchup, obviously. For other good Warlock decks, we actually have Phylactery Warlock at the top, and that is pretty interesting. Like, I'm not sure why exactly Phylactery Warlock became this good again. Maybe just people haven't tried it as much, or I don't know, but the deck is really showing signs of being a very, very strong and hard to play against deck. Just Imp Warlock is also working nice and good, and the rest is iterations of those. So that's it for the 5 best decks, and as you saw, there's literally not a single deck using even one of the old Knights of the Frozen Throne cards. The reason for that is Hearthstone has been doing some insane power creep with each individual expansion, and every expansion is basically so much stronger than the last. We cannot really realistically expect an expansion that old to really have a meaningful impact on the meta right now. Like, everything is just so much stronger nowadays, and yeah, even though Knights of the Frozen Throne was an amazing expansion and it was super powerful back in the day with the new hero cards and all of that, it just does not stand the test of time. So aside from something like Spreading Plague, literally everything else is pretty much obsolete. Like, if it doesn't have an insane, good, unique effect, it's just not good enough anymore, because there are just better alternatives nowadays. Either way, let's check out the classes we haven't mentioned today, starting off with Hunter, where Beast Hunter is still doing pretty strong, but it's not as populated anymore, and people are just playing some other stuff now. With Mage, I almost included Ping Mage, and as you can see, the deck is doing very good right now. I have showed you this Ping Mage variant a few meta reports ago, so you can check out some details about it there, but again, it's not a deck that includes any of the old cards, so there's that as well. Spooky Mage is also doing fine, Secret Mage is actually doing pretty well as well, and we also have other iterations of Ping Mage, but they're not doing as good. With Paladin, Control Paladin is still doing okay, games are pretty slow with it, but if the cards land right for you, it feels very disgusting to play against. With Rogue, Miracle Rogue is the best performer, from Diamond to Legend at least, but at top 1000 Legend you're gonna see tons more Thief Rogues, so both of those archetypes are doing very well. Kelset Rogue, do not get baited, it literally is not strong enough anymore. Shark Rogue is actually acceptable, but you have to be really good with the deck to make it work, and as you can see, most people are not. And for Shaman, we still have Control Shaman doing okay, nothing too special, basically same like Control Paladin, sitting at about 55% win rate. Games are slow, but you do feel in control most of the time, so there's that. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in this new old crazy meta. Let me know in the comments below which is your favorite deck right now and why. And don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.